Judge Hollowitz presiding.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to welcome you to round 2 of the mock trial competition for 2014. We're getting a little bit of a later start here, so I'm going to move this right along. My name is Judge Mike Hollowitz, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by introducing my staff here and asking them to say a few words here. First, my bailiff, Mr. Deputy Fleming.
Deputy Fleming with the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office. I work in the jail, worked there 9 years. Past 8 years classification. Real quick classification, all that is if any of you guys come to my jail, I will give you a spot. I'll classify you versus your threat. Put people to work in our kitchen, out in the community as much as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, Senior Assistant Mona Armstrong.
Good morning, Mona Armstrong. And as Judge Hollowitz has explained, I'm a senior assistant prosecutor here in St. Clair County, so I know a little bit about the criminal area of law. I've been an attorney for just about 20 years, and I have prosecuted a number of murder cases, so I'm very interested to see the presentation that you've all put together, and wish you the best of luck on this round.
Sheriff Don.
Good morning, Sheriff Tim Donlin. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 26 years, in office as a sheriff for the last 6. Thank you for taking the time out to do this. I hope you had a good first round. Look forward to the second round, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Mr. Davidson.
I'm Mark Davidson. I'm an attorney practicing here in Port Huron. I've judged all these. I think we're up to about the 9th year of doing this. I've done it every year, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I do have a law practice that involves a considerable amount of litigation, so I've been in the courtroom quite a bit. Also, I also enjoyed criminal law. I did spend 2 years in the prosecutor's office when I first graduated from law school and came back to town. I was kind of like a little internship, but I enjoyed that because it's nice because it's good for your ego because you usually win. But I always get a kick out of when these involve criminal cases. So have a good round.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, everyone. My name's David Kelly. I'm the law clerk for the circuit court here. I've been an attorney for 4 years, and I enjoy judging this competition every year. Good luck to both teams.
Thank you. And again, my name is Judge Mike Hollowitz. I've been an attorney for approximately 20 years now. I'm actually a sitting judge here in the 72nd District Court. My courtroom is just down the hall. It's the other one down here. That's where I work every day. My background is I started my career as an assistant prosecutor about 20 years ago, and I went into private practice after that. I was about 10 years in a private law firm here in town, practicing mostly business-related materials. From there, I went back to the prosecutor's office with Mike Wendling when he was elected prosecutor as his chief assistant, and I served there until I was elected judge approximately 4 years ago. So, with that and our introductions here, I'm going to start this case. So formally, I'm going to call the case of the people of the state of Superior versus Sam Seaside. And at this point, I'm going to ask the prosecution team to make their appearances on the record. And go ahead.
My name is Kate Schonk, and I will be direct examining Devin Blast, who will be played by Mayor Shaman.
My name is Alexandra Card. I'll be direct examining Casey Vince, who is portrayed by Dylan St. Clair.
My name is Claire Brooks. I will be direct examining Luke Eitner, who will be portraying Cameron Paul.
Right, thank you. And does the witnesses wish to introduce themselves as well?
I'm Luke Eitner. I will be playing Cameron Paul.
Right.
My name is Marianne Shaman, and I will be playing Devin Blast.
My name is Dylan St. Pierre. I will be playing Casey Vince.
All right. And to the defense team, if you want to place your appearances on the record and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Tiana Spear. I will be performing the opening statement and the direct of Parker D., played by Zach Nicholson, and the cross-examination of Casey Vince.
Thank you.
My name is Heaven Powell. I will be directing Ronnie Johnson, played by Dalton McKinstry, and I am performing the closing argument.
Thank you.
My name is Kaylee Kerrigan, and I will be directing Sam Seaside, played by Sarah Vanderevel, and crossing Cameron Paul.
Thank you. again the defense witnesses.
I'm Zachary Nicholson. I will be portraying Parker D today.
All right,
Dalton McKinstry, I'll be being Ronnie Johnson.
thank you.
I'm Sarah Huron. I'll be playing Sam Seaside.
All right, thank you very much. All right, with that then, are the people ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is the defense ready to proceed? All right, the people may begin with their opening statement.
The defendant, Sam Seaside, is being tried for the murder of Nikki Shore. We as the prosecution have the burden of proof, and we would like you to find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. The prosecution will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant in the state of Superior, at or about the date and place charged, knowingly caused the death of Nikki Shore. The evidence in this case will show that Nikki and the defendant were originally good friends. They had what you would call a love-hate relationship. They were constantly getting into fights and physical altercations. However, even though Nikki and the defendant's relationship was rocky, I'm sure Nikki thought he could trust the defendant. He never imagined that one day Sam would be taking away his life. Nikki Shore should be here with us today, but the defendant viciously murdered him in a fit of rage. You will hear evidence about how tensions between Nikki and the defendant had always been present, but they began to increase dramatically on the night of May 17th. The defendant had a party at her house, and Nikki decided to invite some of her friends. The defendant did not like Nikki's friends, and she became frustrated at Nikki. At Sam's party, she pulled out her father's gun and began doing an impression of her father. She also proved that she knew where the bullets to the gun were being kept during the impression, and she had previously been taught how to use the gun. Coincidentally, this same gun was reported missing the day after the defendant was caught waving it around confidently. The defendant and Nikki didn't talk after that until Ronnie Johnson's party on May 24th. At this party, Nikki and the defendant got into a physical altercation that had to be broken up. They were fighting over the fact that the defendant had been caught plagiarizing. The defendant knew that if anyone ever found out about this scandal, her grandma would not pay for her to go to college. The defendant kept this secret from her grandmother in order to get what she wanted. Sam did not want Nikki to keep running her mouth about how she had gotten in trouble. Nikki and the defendant were seen leaving together that night in Nikki's car. After they left, the defendant shot Nikki Shore in her car in the heat of the moment. During this trial, you will hear testimony from Casey Vince, who is an expert in DNA forensic analysis for the state lab. He will discuss the blood of Nikki Shore being found in her car and how the blood was from a gunshot wound. You will also hear testimony from Cameron Paul, who is an expert in crime scene analysis with the state lab. He will talk about the bullet found in the car and the details of the cartridges and how they relate to the bullets found at the defendant's grandma's house. You will also hear about the clothes at the defendant's house and how they had blood on them, and Mr. Paul will also testify to the inconclusive fingerprints. You will hear testimony from Devin Blast, who was a good friend of both the defendant and Nikki. She will talk about her relationship with Nikki and the defendant, and her view on what eventually led to the killing of Nikki Shore. Altogether, the jury can conclude that Sam Seaside murdered Nikki Shore in the heat of the moment on the night of May 24th, after getting into a physical altercation at the house of Ronnie Johnson. The defendant shot Nikki in her car with the gun of her father, which she had stolen. It is clear that the evidence points to the defendant being the true murderer of Nikki Shore, beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution would like to remind the jury to find Sam Seaside guilty of second-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the defense wish to give an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed then.
Good morning, Honorable Judge Hulwitz, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Tiana Spear, and I and my co-counsel, Heaven Powell and Kaylee Kerrigan, are here in the representation of Sam Seaside. Suffering is almost always the result of ignorance, and even good intentions can have detrimental results when there is a lack of knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why we are here today. The prosecution has created a theory that is based almost all of speculation, assumptions, and a total rush to judgment, despite there being a substantial lack of evidence. The opposing counsel may have good intent, but their rush to judgment resulted in an unsettling, misguided, and inaccurate theory of what happened to Nikki Shore. Instead of thoroughly investigating Nikki's disappearance, the prosecution has vilified Sam Seaside, an innocent teenage girl, and made her the scapegoat of a terrible crime that we don't even know has been committed. May 24th, 2013 is the day that Sam Seaside will likely never be able to forget. This is the day that her best friend, Nikki Shore, disappeared. It also marks the start of a living nightmare that came from the state's rush to judgment. Sam has been accused of second-degree murder of her best friend, Nikki Shore. Like most longtime friends, Sam and Nikki had their disagreements, and sometimes they fought like brother and sister, but the fact of the matter was they were friends, best friends, and despite the fact that they didn't always get along, Sam Seaside would definitely never do anything to hurt, in a detrimental way, Nikki Shore. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Seaside has no obligation to testify today, and she doesn't have to prove anything. She could sit here and say nothing at all, as the prosecution makes speculations to prove what she knows in her heart to be false. The burden of proof is upon the prosecution to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that Sam Seaside murdered Nikki Shore. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not going to happen because it did not happen. This has been such a rush to judgment in this case that we have a murder charge without even knowing if someone is dead. Go ahead and ask yourselves the obvious question here. If Nikki's dead, then where's her body? It's a simple question, but it's a substantial one. The prosecution is making an argument that there's a death when there is no body and no substantial amount of evidence that would go to the conclusion that there was a fatal wound injury to death. The opposing counsel will try to convince you that a few drops of blood and a single bullet is enough evidence to prove that Nikki was allegedly shot in her car and died in the car of a gunshot wound. However, you will hear from the expert, Parker D., who is an expert in forensic DNA and bloodstain analysis, that the small amount of blood found on the door and the 3 small droplets of blood found on the seat could have just as easily come from a nosebleed or a sneeze associated with a nosebleed, rather than it being from a gunshot wound. Parker will also tell you that the amount of blood in the car was consistent with a nosebleed and not a fatal injury. You will also hear testimonies from a close friend that Nikki had serious sinus infections that caused her nose to bleed constantly. We, the defense, believe that without a body, the evidence cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt death by a gunshot wound. The prosecution will make a lot of accusations about my client. They will try to attempt to portray her as the obvious suspect with a motive. However, the opposing counsel fails to acknowledge that there is a vital missing link in this case. This link was Nikki's ex, Joe Turner. Sam will tell you that yes, she was with Nikki on the night of her disappearance. In fact, she was going to give her a ride home. She was to be the responsible driver, as Nikki and Joe and the rest of their friends were going to be partaking in drinking. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that the last person to be seen with Nikki was Joe Turner. He was the last person to be seen with Nikki Shore before she disappeared, and he wasn't around the next day to answer any questions. He had enlisted in the Army and apparently been on a vacation. Good intentions sometimes fall short, but ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear that when Sam Seaside first talked to Mrs. Shore, she didn't tell her the complete truth. She basically tried covering for her friend and telling her that when she hadn't seen her since Friday night. The truth was she was just trying to protect her. Sam Seaside is not the murderer of Nikki Shore. She is a friend who sometimes had sprawls and is desperately grieving to find her friend Nikki Shore. We the defense think that the prosecution does not have substantial amount of evidence to prove guilty.
Thank you. All right, that people wish to call their first witness.
The prosecution calls Devin Blast to the stand.
All right, Devin Blast.
Do you swear that you'll testify within the rules of the mock trial, sir? Have a seat, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. May proceed.
Could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Devin Blast, B-L-A-S-S-T.
Could you please tell the court your age?
I am 19 years old.
How did you become involved in this case?
My friend Nikki Shore went missing.
How do you know the defendant?
We were friends throughout schooling.
Can you point out the defendant? Let the record reflect that the defendant has been identified.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Right, then the record will reflect identification of the defendant by this witness.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a student.
Where are you going to school?
Superior University.
Did you know Nikki Shore and Sam Seaside?
Yes, they were both my friends.
How would you describe their relationship?
It was a love-hate relationship.
What do you mean by that?
They got into fights pretty frequently.
How, were these fights ever physical?
They engaged in some physical altercations, but I mean, I've never seen anything more than pushing and shoving.
Let me bring to your attention the night of senior prom. Did anyone have a party that night?
Sam did.
How did you observe the defendant to be feeling about the party being at her house?
Well, Sam was pretty irritated because it was only supposed to be a small group of us.
Was the party throughout the house?
Yes, but it was mainly in the study.
What was the defendant doing in the study?
Sam was taking tequila shots and was waving around her dad's gun.
How did you observe people react to the defendant pulling out this gun?
Somebody completely freaked out, and then people were just astonished that she was waving the gun around.
Did the defendant do anything to calm people down about the gun being out?
She showed everybody that the gun wasn't loaded, but also showed us where the bullets were located in the drawer.
Did anything happen when the defendant's parents got home?
Well, Mr. Seaside's gun went missing, so she got in trouble for the party.
Were you aware of, did you observe the defendant being worried about anything in particular about the missing gun?
Well, I observed that she probably was worried that her grandmother was going to find out.
Were you aware of the financial situation between Sam and her grandmother?
Yes, Nikki, Sam, and I all knew that Sam's grandmother was paying for her college.
And what would happen if Sam's grandmother found out about the missing gun?
She wouldn't pay for her college anymore.
Did the defendant blame anyone for the events that led up to the gun being missing?
Nikki was blamed for the party and how Sam got grounded.
Was there another party after the defendant's?
Yes, Ronnie Johnson's party.
Who is Ronnie Johnson?
It's a friend from school for all of us.
Did there seem to be any tension between the defendant and Nikki at this party?
They got in an argument, but I was far away from it.
Why did there seem to be tension between them?
Well, Nikki was going around telling everybody about how Sam plagiarized at school.
Did this fight have to be broken up between them?
It was broken up by Joe Turner.
So the last time you saw the defendant and the victim together was when they were fighting?
Yes.
No further questions.
Right, thank you. Do you wish to cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, defense may proceed.
You are close friends with Sam Seaside, correct? Yes. As well as Nikki Shore? Yeah, we were all friends. Since elementary school? Yep. You were together all the time, correct? Yes, we spent a good amount of time together. You even called yourselves the Three Musketeers? Yes. Sam and Nikki occasionally argued, correct? Yeah, they would get into some fights. Like brother and sister? Yeah, you could say that. The only physical thing you saw was the occasional push or shove, correct? Yeah, that's the only thing I saw, but that's as far as I saw. You never saw them hitting each other? No. You never saw them kicking each other? No, as far as I saw them. You've never seen them punching each other? No, as far as I saw them. You've never seen any of that, have you? No. You knew that Nikki and Joe had a relationship, correct? Yes, they were dating. So you know that Nikki and Joe had broken up? Yes, they had previously dated. And you also saw Nikki and Joe leaving together one night from Ronnie Johnson's party, correct? Yes, I saw them leave together. And both of them were intoxicated? Yes, they were both drinking at the party. And Sam was even a part of the Three Musketeers, correct? Yes. You knew that Sam planned on going to college, correct? Yes. Because Sam sure talked about it a lot, didn't she? Yes, she talked about going to college. So you'd say it was fairly important to her, correct? Sure, yeah, you could say that. And Nikki was also a part of the Three Musketeers, correct? Yes. And you saw Nikki the night of Ronnie's party? Yes, I saw Nikki. You even talked to Nikki that day, didn't you? Yes. Nikki seemed a bit grumpy, didn't she? Maybe for the past couple of months. Oh, yeah. The reason was because she had constant nosebleeds, wasn't it? She had told me she had a sinus infection. And you knew that she had chronic nosebleeds, correct? Yes. And you talked about seeing the gun at Sam Seaside's party. Yes, I saw the gun. Sam was waving it around. So you saw the gun when Sam did an imitation of Mr. Seaside? Yes. And there were many people around while Sam was doing that impersonation, weren't there? There were a good amount of people. So all of those people could have known there was a gun at Sam's parents' house? Yeah, you could say that. All of those people could have seen where Sam put the gun away? Possibly. All of those people could have seen where Sam put the bullets? They could have. All of those people saw the bullets were put in the desk drawer? I do not know if all of those people saw them. All of those people could have seen that the gun wasn't loaded when Sam showed it wasn't loaded, correct? Yes, maybe. And you saw Sam at school the next week? Yes, I saw Sam at school. You noticed that she was upset, correct? Yes, she was mad she got grounded. In fact, she was upset because someone had stolen her father's gun, wasn't she? She was mad in general about the party, the gun being stolen, and getting grounded. But she had told you that she was upset because someone had stolen her father's gun, correct? Yes. And that was before the party of Ronnie Johnson, correct? Yes. And you've mentioned Sam being accused of plagiarism in school? Yes, she was accused of plagiarism, and she got in trouble for it. And Sam and Nikki got into a little spat because of it, am I right? Yeah, Sam was really mad that Nikki was going around telling everybody about it. It was a little argument, though, wasn't it? You could call it an argument. It wasn't very heated. This wasn't a violent argument. There was nothing physical, was there? No, I would not describe it as physical, but it was just like one of those brother and sister squabbles they've been having for years. Isn't that right? Yeah, they had fights previously, and I never saw anything, but definitely thought that it could have gone further. But it was just like one in the pile of petty quarrels they've been having for years between Sam and Nikki, wasn't it? Yes or no, please? Yes. You didn't see Nikki and Sam last together the night she disappeared, did you? No, Sam left immediately after. I didn't see him the rest of the night. But you did see Nikki and Joe leave together, didn't you? Yes, they left together. And this was the last time you saw the victim, Nikki Shore? Yes, this was the last time I saw her. No further questions, Your Honor.
Do people have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, you may proceed.
Did the defendant and Nikki fight a lot?
Yeah, they were always getting into fights and arguments.
Did their fight at Ronnie's house have to be broken up?
It was broken up, yes.
No further questions.
Right. Does that lead to any further recross?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you very much. You may step down.
Thank you.
People may call their next witness, please.
The prosecution calls Casey Vince to the stand.
All right.
Swear that you're gonna testify within the rules of the mock trial term. Proceed, sir. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Could you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
Casey Vince, V-I-N-C-E.
And where do you work?
I am a DNA forensic analyst at the Superior Department of Public Health and Environment Lab Services Division.
Where did you go to school?
I earned a bachelor's of chemistry with an emphasis on serology from University of North Carolina, and I also earned a master's in forensics from Superior University.
What are some of your professional affiliations?
I'm a part of the International Association of Bloodstain Pattern Analysis and the Association of Superior Law Enforcement Officers.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench with what has been marked as prosecution proposed exhibit number 8?
Yes, you may.
Permission to approach the witness.
You may.
Could you please identify this?
This is my curriculum vitae.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, we offer prosecution proposed exhibit 8 into evidence at this time.
Any objections from defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then it's admitted.
Your Honor, based on the witness's professional and educational backgrounds, we move that Casey Vince be qualified as an expert in DNA crime scene blood analysis.
Any objection to that from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then the court will receive this witness's testimony as that of an expert. You may proceed.
How did you get involved in this case?
On May 26th, my chief CSA, Cameron Paul, called me up and asked me to assist in a missing persons investigation.
And what was at the scene that you were called to?
I was called and we went to an abandoned vehicle that was ended up being registered to Nikki Shore. We, during our investigation, we found bloodstains on the side of the seat, on the side of the passenger side door, and there was a bullet in between the door and the seat.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench with what has been marked as prosecution proposed exhibit number 1?
You may.
Permission to approach the witness.
Okay.
Could you please identify this?
These are photos that we took at the crime scene.
Have they been altered in any way?
No, they have not.
Your Honor, we offer prosecution proposed exhibit number 1 into evidence at this time.
Is there any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then it is received by the court.
Could you please show what is shown in these pictures?
On the first photo of Exhibit 1 here, we have the Nikki Shore's abandoned vehicle. And the second photo, you have an aerial view of the bloodstains that are on the, right here, these couple drops that were on the passenger seat. And then you can see the bullet. This is a close-up of the bullet that's in between the seat.
Did this bullet appear to have hit someone?
Yes, there was blood on the bullet.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench to show you has been marked as prosecution proposed exhibit number 2?
Yes.
Permission to approach the witness.
You may.
Could you please identify this?
These are more photos from the crime scene, more detailed photos.
Have they been
Yes.
altered in any way?
No, they have not.
Your Honor, we move to enter exhibit 4 into evidence.
Is there any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then it's admitted.
What is shown in these pictures?
These are more photos of the more close-ups of the bloodstains, and these specifically focus on the bloodstains that are on the passenger side seat. There are about 4 or 5 decently sized drops, which most likely are consistent with a contact stain from like where the blood was in contact with somebody then touched the seat. And this is the spatter that was found on the side of the door. And these, because they're smaller and because they have directional tails on them, they're consistent with a gunshot wound. They indicate high velocity projectile.
Did you run any tests on these droplets?
Yes, I ran PCR on all of them to increase the amount of DNA that I had, so I could compare it with the DNA that I received from the victim Nikki Shore's house. I went there and received a strand of her hair from a hairbrush in her private bathroom so I could compare the DNA with these bloodstains to her DNA. And after I replicated a sufficient amount of DNA, I compared them, and all of the blood found in the car and on the bullet, and on CMC side shirt, all connected with, they were all Nikki Shore's blood.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench with what has been marked as prosecution proposed Exhibit 4?
You may.
Michelle, do you want to approach the witness?
You may.
Could you please identify this?
These are the test results from the test that I just previously explained.
Have they been altered in any way?
Oh, no, they have not.
Your Honor, we move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Is there any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Right, then the exhibit is admitted.
What are the chances of this being someone else's blood?
There's a 1 in 6.1 trillion chance of this being anybody else's blood.
Now, Mr. Shore, based on the pattern of the blood droplets, can you make a prediction of where the shooter was sitting at the time of the shooting?
Because the bloodstains, the majority of the spatter from the gunshot was found on the passenger side door, it is most likely that the gunshot originated from the driver's seat and the victim being in the passenger seat.
Are you familiar with the theory of the blood in the car coming from a sneeze?
Yes, I am familiar.
What's your professional opinion on this theory?
Just a theory. We, in our lab, we deal in facts, and that there are not sufficient amount of facts to support that theory.
And based on the evidence you gather, who killed Nikki Shore?
In my expert opinion, I believe that CMC side killed Nikki Shore.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
On May 26, 2013, you got a call from the Chief CSA, correct?
Yes,
And this pertained to an investigation of a missing person.
yes,
When you arrived to the scene, you began processing a vehicle, is that correct?
yes,
And this vehicle was abandoned
yes,
for 2 days, is that right?
yes,
Before the police arrived, the vehicle and the surrounding scene had not been protected, correct?
I suppose so.
And you treated this scene as a crime scene?
Yes,
It is important that crime scenes can be protected to ensure the integrity of an investigation, is that correct?
yes, but we weren't even informed of the crime scene prior to.
But it's important to help
May 26th.
ensure accuracy, correct?
Yeah, but there's no evidence of
To
any
prevent
tampering.
destruction of any evidence that may be at the crime scene, correct?
No evidence.
Yes or
of-
no, please?
No. Yes,
You-
yes,
Oh, okay. To prevent contamination of any evidence that may be at the crime scene, correct?
yes.
Anyone could have been at the crime scene before the police arrived. Is that
Any-
true?
Anything's possible.
Yes or no, please?
Yes,
Thank you. There was a 2-day window during which the alleged crime scene was unprotected,
yes.
during which evidence could have been destroyed,
It could have been, yes,
tampered with,
yes.
contaminated,
It's possible,
or
yes.
compromised, correct?
Yes,
You've testified that it is your expert opinion Nikki Shore was murdered in that car. Is that true?
yes.
But her body was not found in the vehicle, was it?
No, it was not.
Her body wasn't at the scene,
No, her blood was.
but not her body, correct?
No, but a substantial amount of blood.
You call a few drops and spatter substantial?
The few drops, these being contact stains, I mean,
Substantial in amount?
substantial, the spatter on the side of the car door is
Would you say
substantial.
the blood amount was substantial, in your expert opinion?
In my expert opinion, that the stains that we found in the car are consistent with a gunshot
That's
wound.
not what I asked you. I asked you if the amount of blood was substantial.
It very well could be.
So you never found a body, did you?
No, we did not.
If that's where she was killed, if in fact she was killed, then her body not being at the scene would lead to the idea that the crime scene has been compromised, correct?
It's possible, I suppose.
If she did die in that vehicle and her body was not there, then somebody must have moved it. Is that true?
That's not necessarily the crime scene being tampered with.
Okay. So, once you finished analyzing the crime scene, you left. Is that true?
Oh, yes.
And you went to the missing person's home
Yes.
to collect a hairbrush
Yes. Yep.
for a DNA sample. Is that right?
Yes.
But you don't know whose hair you obtained, do you?
It was from the victim's private bathroom. It was her
Do you know
hairbrush.
for sure that the hair was, in fact, Nikki Shore's, yes or no?
It is very probable that it was her hair. It was from
Do
her
you know
hairbrush.
for sure? That was my question.
Unless somebody else used her private bathroom, I don't know.
Her mother lived there, correct?
Yes,
Nikki had friends.
she had probably had a separate bathroom.
For friends?
I mean, it was her private bathroom.
Is there a possibility that somebody in the house or just sleeping over could have used the hairbrush or left it there?
Then whose ever DNA that was
That's not what I
connects
asked
with
you. I asked
all
if it
of
was a
our.
possibility. Could you please answer yes or no?
It's possible.
You never considered that as a possibility in this investigation, did you?
It's not probable.
You never asked those questions.
Not questions that need to be asked.
Mr. Vince, you're expected to be thorough, correct?
Yes,
You're expected to be complete,
yes,
accurate.
yes.
But lack of thoroughness can cause error, can it?
It could.
And lack of completeness can cause error. Is that
Yes, it
correct?
could. Yep.
So lack of accuracy can skew the results. Is that true?
Yes,
You observed bloodstains in 2 areas of the car, correct?
yes,
And one of these being on the car door.
yes,
And the bloodstains observed on the car door were blood splatters
yes,
created by, they created a pattern that suggested high-speed dispersal.
yes. Most likely a gunshot wound to the chest.
These stains had directional markers of a force called tails.
Yes,
You determined the pattern of these tails.
yes,
And the smaller the blood droplet, the less identifiable the tail. Is that correct?
yes,
And these were, in fact, small blood droplets.
yes. Small spatter is consistent with high velocity projectile.
There were also bloodstains on the car seat. Is that correct?
Yes,
And these spots were larger than those found on the car door.
yes. Those were contact.
They had
wounds.
no directional markers. Is that true?
No, they did not.
So this suggests there was no factor of force creating those blood droplets. Is that correct?
No, those were contact stains, as I said before.
There was no factor of force.
No, the blood was most likely on either a hand or a piece of clothing, and then it touched the seat. That's all
So
it was.
there was no force creating these blood drops.
Not the ones
correct?
on the seat, no, the ones on the door, yes.
Well, that's what I asked you. Thank you. So they were consistent with blood dripping, correct?
Yes,
You state that these stains are consistent with blood dripping from a wound. Is that true?
yeah, possible.
However, the stains would also be consistent with blood dripping from a nose. Isn't that right?
It could be, it's possible.
You also tested a single drop of blood found on Sam Seaside's shirt. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you determined that blood to be degraded.
yes,
You also described the blood droplet as small.
yes,
So small, in fact, that you could not determine the directionality. Is that correct?
yes, which is consistent with the spatter that is
Therefore, you
also-
cannot say the blood droplet, or therefore you could not say that this blood drop was a result of force. Is that true?
Yes,
Yet you've testified that this small amount of blood could be a result of partial blowback
yes,
from what you assume to be a fatal wound.
yes,
But blowback occurs as a result of force, doesn't it?
yes,
The blood drop could have just as well came from one of Nikki's infamous nosebleeds. Is that correct?
it's possible.
Or a small inconspicuous cut.
It's possible.
You don't know how it got there, do you?
I do not know how that got there.
Or when it got there.
Because it was degraded, no.
So you're speculating that it came from a gunshot wound. Is that correct?
That specific.
Yes or no, please?
Yes.
So you dismissed all other possibilities. Isn't that true?
None other were as probable
You
as that
dismissed
one.
all other possibilities, correct?
That possibility was consistent with all
Yes or
the
no,
other
please?
evidence we found. Yes.
You claim to be an expert, Mr. Vince,
Yes.
and you're confident when you do.
Yes.
You believe that much of forensic investigation is instinct,
Yes.
common sense,
Yes.
and logic.
Yes.
You believe that you deal in facts, correct?
Yes.
But instinct and fact are not the same thing, are they?
They are not.
Instinct is intuitive,
It is.
something that is not objectively verifiable.
It is.
Fact, on the other hand, is something that is objectively verifiable. Is that correct?
Yes.
And an expert is supposed to be objective. Is that true?
Yes.
There was no body recovered,
There was no body recovered, no.
and there was no conclusive evidence that the bullet you found in the car was fired from Sam Seaside's father's gun. Is that true?
The spatter was consistent with the bullet being fired. It was
There was no
consistent
conclusive
with
evidence.
it.
Yes.
The
or
evidence
no?
of the blood spatter on the side
I'm
of the
asking
door.
about the bullet you found in the car.
No residue was found, so no.
Was that no?
No.
There are 22 different brands of firearms that could have fired that bullet, correct?
I'm not an expert in ballistics. I don't.
So
I do
you
blood
really
stain
have,
pattern
it
analysis.
is a possibility, so you have no idea what exact weapon fired that bullet, do you?
You'd have to contact my colleague about that. I'm bloodstain, not ballistics.
So there is no objectable, verifiable evidence that Nikki Shore is dead.
Her DNA on the side of the door in the form of blood spatter, and I could be convinced otherwise.
Is it objective, verifiable evidence that she's dead? Or that her blood was in the car?
No, it is not.
Thank you. Is that time? No. So there has been no body found, correct?
Yes.
And you say the people working in your state lab are overworked
Yes, I have said that.
and underpaid.
Yes, but we do get the job done.
But quality can sometimes be sacrificed because of this, right?
I suppose.
Quality can be sacrificed
I
when,
suppose. Yes.
and sometimes it is. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Who did the blood in the car match to?
All of the blood in the car, as well as the blood on Sam Seaside's T-shirt, matched to the victim, Nikki Shore.
And was there a fired bullet in the car?
Yeah, there was a bullet in the car, and yes.
And in your expert opinion, based on years of experience, where is the blood in the car from?
The blood in the car is most likely from a gunshot wound to the chest.
No further questions.
All right. Based on that, any further recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right. You may step down. Thank you. I have my next witness from the people.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Cameron Paul to the stand.
All right. Mr. Paul?
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear that you'll testify within the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I swear.
Have a seat, sir. Thank you.
All right, you may proceed.
Will you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Cameron Paul, Paul.
Mr. Paul, what is your current occupation?
I'm currently the head crime scene analyst for the State of Superior State Lab.
How long have you been involved in this career?
I've worked here for 20 years, but I was recently promoted to the head crime scene analyst 4 years ago.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench to show what has been marked as prosecution proposed Exhibit 7?
You may. You may.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
Has it been altered or changed in any way?
No, it is not.
Your Honor, I move that prosecution proposed Exhibit 7 be entered into evidence at this time.
Is there any objection on behalf of the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
Right, then it is admitted.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your educational background?
I attended the University of Superior, where I earned my bachelor's in criminology and my master's in forensic science.
And do you have any professional affiliations that you would like to let the court know about?
Yes, I've been a member of the Association of Superior Law Enforcement Officers since 1992, and I've been a member of the Association of Firearms and Tool Marks Examiners since 1995.
Your Honor, I move that Cameron Paul be qualified as an expert witness in the field of forensics, or in the field of ballistics and firearms.
All right, thank you. Is there any objection by the defense in this?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then the court will receive the testimony of this witness as an expert in that field. You may proceed.
Mr. Paul, how did you come involved in this case?
I was called about an abandoned vehicle.
Who did this vehicle belong to?
I ran the plates and ended up belonging to a Nikki Shore.
And what did you discover while investigating this vehicle?
When we were investigating the vehicle, we found the blood stains that were on the car door and the passenger seat, and we also found a bullet in between the passenger seat and the passenger door.
Did the bullet appear to be fired?
Yes, there was damage to the nose of the bullet, which indicates that it came into contact with a hard material, which is actually very indicative of a murder case when it came in contact with bone.
So in your expert opinion, what do you think caused the damage?
When if a bullet is fired and it comes in contact through a person, when it hits their bone, it will damage the nose of the bullet, and I believe that's what caused the damage.
Okay, where did you go after you finished up at the scene?
After that, I went to the defendant's house.
Was this your first time interviewing the defendant?
Yes, it was.
And did you obtain anything of significance at this interview?
The defendant gave me the shirt that he was wearing the night previous.
Did anything seem peculiar about the clothes you received?
The shirt that he gave me had a blood stain on it.
And did you take these clothes back to the lab to be tested?
Yes, I did. I took them to my partner, Casey Vince.
At the lab, did you receive the fingerprint results?
Yes, the fingerprints result came back negative.
And in your expert opinion, what do you think about that result?
Even if there wasn't a murder case, it's very peculiar that there's no fingerprints on a car that's been driven recently.
Does that result as a tamper, or what can it result from?
There's definitely a high probability that if someone wanted to hide something, they would have wiped down the fingerprints.
Okay, and did you interview Sam Seaside, the defendant, for a second time?
Yes, I did.
And did you learn if the defendant consumed alcohol at the night of her party?
Yes, the defendant did consume alcohol illegally.
Okay, and at the home of the defendant, did you speak to anyone besides Sam Seaside?
Yes, I spoke to the defendant's father.
Did he provide you with anything?
He provided me with a box of ammunition.
Was there anything strange about the box that you noticed?
I learned that he had never opened the box. It came with 50 bullets inside of it, but when he presented it to me, the seal had been broken and there were 9 missing bullets.
What type of gun does Mr. Seaside own?
Mr. Seaside owns a he used to own before it was stolen, a 9-shot H&R .22 caliber pistol.
And how many bullets were missing?
9 bullets.
And do you know how many bullets it takes to fill one full cartridge in Mr. Seaside's stolen gun?
9 bullets.
Did you learn if the defendant had ever learned how to use the gun?
Yes, the defendant had learned how to use the gun when the defendant's father took them to the defendant's grandmother's house and they shot the gun into a tree stump.
So did you investigate this property?
Yes, I investigated the property and recovered 3 bullets from the tree stump in question.
In your expert opinion, did the defendant know how to use and operate the gun?
Yes, he did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Wait, hang on. Did you file a report on all of the bullets that you recovered?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has been marked as prosecution proposed exhibit 5?
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, this is the report that I filed on the bullets.
Has it been altered or changed in any way?
No, it is not.
Your Honor, I move that prosecution proposed exhibit 5 be entered into evidence at this time.
Or is there any objection on behalf of the defendant? All right, then it's admitted. You may proceed.
In your expert opinion, were the bullets that you found in the stump consistent with the gun that was stolen from Mr. Seaside?
Yes, they were. They were all .22 caliber bullets, and when a bullet is fired, the barrels of the guns are spiraled so that the bullet can go faster and more straight, and all 4 of the bullets had the same right twist that was indicative of Mr. Seaside's gun.
So, in your expert opinion, were all 4 bullets that you recovered consistent with each other, including the one that you found from the vehicle?
Yes, they all were.
And don't you think that it's too much of a coincidence that you would find 4 bullets that just were fired from a missing gun?
I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think that all bullets did come from the same gun, Mr. Seaside's stolen gun.
And in your expert opinion, who do you believe murdered Nikki Shore?
I believe that Sam Seaside murdered Nikki Shore with his father's gun.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed then.
You work for the state lab, correct?
Yes, I do.
There has been budget cuts in the last year, correct?
Yeah, everybody's having tough times.
The senior firearms examiner even retired.
That's true.
You are the chief CSA, correct?
That is also true.
But now you have to conduct the ballistics and the firearms for the state lab.
Yes, I am a ballistics and firearm analyst.
Working as a CSA entitles a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Working CSA. But now you have to do all the firearms examinations on top of your CSA duties, correct?
Yeah, that is my expertise.
Both jobs require a lot of attention, correct?
Yeah, I suppose they did.
Nikki Shore was last seen with 2 people, right?
Correct.
Sam Seaside was only one of those 2 people, correct?
Sam told me that he saw Nikki.
Yes or no? Sam was only one of those 2 people.
Yes, Sam was in the car with Nikki and Joe.
Joe Turner was the other one, correct?
Yes, he was.
As far as you know, there was no physical altercations between Sam Seaside and Nikki Shore, correct?
No, there was no fight, but Joe broke it up.
What? There was no fight, but Joe broke it up?
What Sam told me, there was a slight argument, but Joe broke it up.
Oh, okay. Sam Seaside provided you with a t-shirt and a pair of jeans that she wore May 24th, correct?
Yes, the clothes with the blood stains.
You placed them in a bag,
Correct.
but you noticed something, correct?
The blood stains.
The blood stains? As in plural, there were plural blood stains?
There was a blood stain on the shirt.
So there was only one blood stain, one small blood stain on the shirt, correct?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, yes or no, there was
Yes,
only one.
there was one blood stain on the shirt that I noticed.
But you tried to contact Joe Turner, correct?
Yes, I did.
But there was no one at the home of
No, Joe was not at his house when I tried to interview him.
And there was no cars in the driveway or no answer on the phone?
No.
And when you got a call back, Joe Turner had joined the Army and was deported.
Yeah, it would appear that he enlisted.
He was already deployed to Afghanistan.
Yes.
You did analyze the car, correct?
Yes, I did.
What was the license plate number on that car?
I don't remember the license plate number.
Okay. There was no fingerprints at the crime scene, correct?
No, none that we lifted.
There was no evidence of tampering of any kind, correct?
Not necessarily, but there was definitely probable cause.
You personally conducted the ballistics analysis,
Yes, I did.
but you have only just started as the ballistic examiner, correct?
Yes, but as I said before, that's my expertise.
So you don't have many years of experience, considering you just started the actual job, correct?
Technically, I just took this position, yes.
The bullet you retrieved from the vehicle is a .22 caliber, correct?
Yes, it is.
It had been fired.
Yes, it had been fired.
The bullet showed damage from hitting a hard material, correct?
Yes.
The material could be bone, right?
Yeah, which I believe it is.
But it also could be something hard like a car door.
Yes, it also could have been. They're almost impossible to tell apart.
When you examined bullet number 1, you revealed that it was fired by a .22 revolver with 6 lands and grooves and a right twist in the barrel, correct?
Yes.
There are 22 brands that could have fired bullet number 1, right?
Yes. In my line of
22
work-
brands, thousands of guns, correct?
could you repeat the question?
22 brands and thousands of guns could have fired bullet number 1.
Yes.
Only 1 out of thousands could have fired this. Only one. All right, never mind. Disregard that. You tried to match the bullet at the crime scene with practice shots fired from Mr. Seaside's gun, correct?
Yes.
You retrieved 3 bullets.
Yes, taken from the grandmother's stump.
No further questions here.
Thank you. Any redirect from the people?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
In your expert opinion, what do you think caused the damage to the bullet?
I believe it was caused by bone.
And at the lab, you said that you didn't receive any fingerprint results. How does this usually result?
It's actually very strange that there weren't any fingerprints. Usually, like I said, even if there's no suspicious activity, there will be fingerprints that we could lift. And I feel that it's extremely strange that there would be no fingerprints at all.
And in your expert opinion, were the bullets that you found in the stump consistent with the bullet that you found in the vehicle?
Yes, like I said, they were all the .22 caliber bullets with the right twist.
So what gun do you believe fired the bullet that was found in the vehicle?
They were all indicative that they were fired by Mr. Seaside's stolen gun. I think it's too much of a coincidence that a different gun with the same make and model as Mr. Seaside's gun could have just shown up in Nikki Shore's car and fired that bullet.
Thank you. No further questions.
Great. Does that bring up any further recross?
No, Your
Right, then you may sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, looks like the people are out of witnesses at this point.
Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
All right, thank you. Would you like to call your first witness then on behalf of the defense?
Defense calls Ronnie Johnson to the stand.
All right, thank you.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear that you'll testify within the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Have seats, sir. Thank you.
Will you state your name for the record, please?
Ronnie Johnson.
And how old are you, Ronnie?
I'm 18.
And what are you doing now?
I go to Superior University and I graduated from Superior High School last year.
What activities were you involved in high school?
I was in like a lot of things. I was in like National Honor Society, Beta Club, Student Council. I was fourth in my class. I was fairly popular.
Are you familiar with Sam Seaside?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Nikki Shore?
Yeah.
What would you describe their relationship with each other as?
It was an unpredictable relationship, but by the end of the day, you can always tell that they cared about each other.
You previously stated that you were fairly popular. Did that entitle any...
Yeah, I attended the occasional party.
Was there any party in particular that stood out to you?
Sam Seaside had a party the night of prom.
Anything else?
Sam was doing an impersonation of Mr. Seaside at the party, and if I think there was a gun, but I don't remember exactly, and there was like a lot of people there, and drinking was involved.
Tell me about what went on after the imitation.
Could you restate the question?
Could you tell me what went on after the imitation of Mr. Seaside?
Yeah, I don't know, could you restate that? Could you like rephrase the question maybe?
How many people were there to see the imitation?
Oh, there was a lot of people watching.
Did everyone stay in the study?
Yeah, Joe particularly was in and out of the study all night, and he didn't like leave the study until after like the party had died down.
And what was Joe's attitude like that night?
He was acting really weird, like everyone was dressed up in formal like clothes because it was like prom. And Joe was like, he looked kind of like a bum, like he was wearing ripped jeans, like a big jacket.
What was Joe and Nikki's relationship like?
Well, Joe and Nikki had previously dated, and they broke up, and Joe never seemed to get over Nikki.
And did Joe go into the study more than that one particular time?
Yes, he was in and out all night.
What was the overall outcome of Sam's party?
Well, like, the following week at school, like, Sam seemed, like, pretty, like, angry and was giving Nikki the cold shoulder because Nikki had, like, invited, like, more people, and, yeah.
Were there any other parties?
Yeah, I had a party the following weekend.
What time did your party start?
At about 6 o'clock, and people were arriving early.
And what time did it end?
If people were drinking, they could stay the night, so.
Was Nikki at your party?
Yes.
Could you describe Nikki's attitude that night?
Nikki was being extra sociable and extra flirty, and most people thought it was pretty funny.
Most people?
Joe was, like, fed up by it, and he was not happy.
And what was Joe's attitude like for the rest of the night?
He was really weird. He kept, like I talked to him once, and he brought us, like, he said he was sick of the whole scene and just ready to leave town behind. It's kind of weird.
Did Nikki and Joe interact any other times that night?
Sam and Nikki got into like a really small, tiny argument, and Joe got into the middle of it, and he was making a way big deal, and he was like freaking out on Nikki and yelling.
And what happened after that?
They all decided to leave the party, and I tried stopping them, but.
And where was Sam?
Sam was in the driver's seat because she was sober, so.
And what was Sam's mood throughout the party?
Sam was kind of fed up and irritated, just kind of wanted to go home.
Where did Nikki and Joe go when they decided to leave?
They were in the car. It was Nikki in the passenger seat, Sam in the front, and Joe in the back.
And did you see Nikki or Joe again after that?
Nope.
How was it the next morning?
Nikki's mom called, and she was freaking out, saying that Nikki never returned home, and she was really worried.
And did you see any violence between Sam and Nikki that night?
No.
Was Nikki being hostile towards anyone that night?
Yeah, Joe.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Would you like to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, you may proceed.
Isn't it true that Sam and Nikki had an unpredictable relationship?
Yes.
At Sam's party, did Nikki invite a lot of people, causing the party to go out of hand?
Yes, but Nikki got over it.
Did Sam get in trouble for the party having so many people?
Yes.
After the party, did it appear that Sam and Nikki were cold towards one another all week?
Yes.
And Sam appeared to be a bit fed up, correct?
Yeah, but they really did care about each other, so.
Could I draw your attention to the night of your party?
Yes.
You observed Sam in an unhappy mood, didn't you?
Yes.
Isn't it true that Sam and Nikki got into an argument?
A tiny argument.
Did you speak with Sam after the argument?
I don't believe so.
Isn't it true that you walked him out to his
Oh,
car?
yes, yes.
And where was Sam sitting in the car?
Sam was in the driver's seat.
And where was Nikki sitting?
Nikki was in the passenger seat.
So the last time you saw Nikki Shore was in the passenger seat of the car that Sam Seaside was driving?
Yes, and Joe was in the back.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any further redirect?
May I redirect, Your Honor?
Yes, please.
Could you describe Nikki and Sam's relationship for me?
Yes, it was unpredictable. Like, they would get into small arguments, but they always did care about each other. They were best friends.
And the night of Ronnie's party, who did Nikki leave with?
Nikki left with Joe, and Sam was, like, responsible for taking them home. Sam was being a good friend.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Right. Any further cross?
No, Your Honor.
Right, thank you. You may step down. Defense may call their next witness.
The defense calls Parker D. to stand.
Mr. D.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear that you're testifying within the rules of the mock trial tournament?
Yes, I do.
Have a seat. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Parker D.
And what do you do for a living, Parker?
Currently, I work as a private investigator and deal with forensics, crime scenes, DNA, blood.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 9?
You may.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you.
Could you identify this for me?
This is my curriculum vitae.
Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 9 to be entered into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Any objections on behalf of the people?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, then that will be admitted. You may proceed.
So where did you start your career, Parker?
Well, I started at working as a senior DNA analyst at the state lab, but then I went to work as an instructor of forensics at Superior University, and further, after I left there, I went to a private firm, and I'm the president of Crime Scene Analysis, LLC.
So why did you resign from the state laboratory?
See, there was a few things going on at the state lab that made me resign. For one, there was budget cuts, and as you know, budget cuts can adversely affect things being done. There was people being fired. The equipment was getting out of date, and you can't have out of date equipment when you need accuracy.
And did this affect the work being done at the state lab?
As for me being a perfectionist and wanting the best, it was not good enough. It was things were being falsely done. It didn't work out too well.
I'd like to now direct your attention to May 26, 2013. Can you tell me what happened that day?
Well, that day, eventually I was called to analyze, well, not really analyze, review the prosecution's and the state's results that they have done on the crime scene.
And what role did you have in this investigation?
Currently, I am here on the defendant's side to review, give my viewpoint, and my expertise on the situation.
Were you satisfied with the access that you were granted in this investigation?
I was not satisfied at all. I did not have access to a vehicle or any of the solid hard evidence. I just had test results, photos. I work with what I can, but I really would have appreciated being able to see what the prosecution had, the crime scene the prosecution had.
And could you please explain how blood splatters occur?
Blood splatters occur. There's multiple ways. Depending on the size of the blood droplet and the size of the directional tails, it tells you by what kind of force and how powerful the force was that created it.
In your expert opinion, what is your stance on the blood splatter on the car door of the vehicle?
The blood splatter on the car door, it did consist, from what I saw in the photos, it did consist of very small droplets. Those small droplets could have easily been would have been created by an application of a very high force. As prosecution said, yes, it can be created by a gunshot, but there was a lack of substantial amount of blood, and for that reason, a sneeze could have created that. when you sneeze, air comes out of your nose at approximately 100 miles an hour. So the force is very similar.
In your expert opinion, can you give a definite conclusion as to how the blood splatters occurred?
No, I cannot give a definite conclusion because there's simply not enough evidence presented or seen by me or the prosecution to conclude one way or the other.
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what is your expert opinion on the amount of blood found on the seat?
In my opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, there was not enough blood present to have been from a fatal gunshot wound.
And on the side of the car door?
The blood on the side of the car door just as easily could have been just someone with a nosebleed, dripping, turning to the side and, sneezing. And that's how that could have gotten there.
Can you tell us why your expert opinion might oppose that of the state laboratory?
The state laboratory didn't always have the best view of me. They got mad at me quite frequently because I'm a perfectionist. And as a perfectionist, I always want to insist for the best, and I want to know 100% definite what the answers are. And I always push them so hard in trying to make them get the right answers. They didn't always appreciate it. So.
Are you aware of any other reliable sources for obtaining a DNA profile?
Of course, you can use blood, hair, just about anything from a human body.
And are there any factors that could taint the reliability of the source?
Yes, if you do not know specifically where it came from or have taken it directly from the source, you cannot know 100% sure that is their DNA.
And to your knowledge, was the hair sample proved to be, in fact, Nikki Shore's?
No. For one, how did they actually know it was the private bathroom? 2, there was lots of people living in that house. Nikki had lots of friends. People spend the night over. Girls do each other's makeup or whatever, hair from the brush, could be from anyone.
So what is your expert opinion on the hair DNA in this case?
It is not reliable whatsoever to make a conclusive result.
And is there, in your expert opinion, a way to confirm that the hair belonged to Nikki Shore?
Until we find her body, there is no way we can figure that out.
And without the body, your expert opinion on the reliability of the sample is?
It's not reliable.
Is there any other evidence in this case that you're aware of?
As far as I know, there's not much.
Could you please explain your nosebleed theory to the court, please, pertaining to Nikki Shore?
Nikki Shore, as you heard earlier in court, had dealt with chronic nosebleeds, which, means their nose bleeds constantly. And if her nose was in fact bleeding that night, because she had been having problems with that all May, a simple turn to the side, sneeze, would have created that. And the blood on the car seat in the photos, which they said were falling blood, which were in fact falling blood, approximately from 15 centimeters up in the air, that's good distance from there. If their head was turned to the side, no blood dripped from the nose, right on the seat, it's all right there.
And are there any other theories that could explain the blood stain in this case?
Of course, the gunshot's a possibility, but it seems a lot less likely given the circumstances. Plus, we don't have solid, hard evidence to even prove that occurred.
So as an expert, what is your opinion on the theory of the prosecution?
The prosecution's theory is inaccurate and somewhat flawed because, unfortunately, they did not consider all possibilities.
Is there anything else you find important in the case regarding the bloodstains?
The bloodstains, well, for one, we could not determine their match to Nikki Shore. And, as I said, more likely to come from a nosebleed, and there wasn't even that much blood in the car in the first place.
So what is your opinion on the blood found on Sam Seaside's shirt?
The blood in Sam Seaside's shirt, 1, was degraded, 2, there was almost nothing on there. And with him being so close to Nikki and her having frequent nosebleeds, there's a plethora of explanations as to how that could have gotten there.
And how do you reason the blood got on the bullet found in the car?
See, here's where another inconclusive thing comes. We don't know exactly where that bullet came from. I did review the ballistic reports, and I know that the ballistic reports were not conclusive enough to prove that that bullet matched ones fired by the defendant's father's gun. And also, the bullet could have been discharged in the car. and the blood from the nosebleed could have dripped on. It was on the side of the seat, someone sneezing, and blood dripping down their nose could have gotten right on it. Or someone could have sneezed and discharged the gun at the same time. There's just simply no way of knowing.
So what do you conclude from the evidence in this case?
I conclude from the evidence that the prosecution's theory is inconclusive and that we cannot make a definite answer as to what had happened in that car.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. Any cross-examination from the people?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
Mr. D, are you getting paid to testify here today?
As every professional witness does.
But isn't it true that you wouldn't get paid a single penny if you couldn't come up with a theory against the prosecution?
It doesn't say anywhere that I wouldn't. I'm getting paid to do my work. I'm not getting paid to prove them right.
You didn't get along with your former colleagues, did you?
Mostly they didn't get along with me.
But you didn't get along with each other.
No, they didn't like my perfectionism.
But do you think they were happy to see you leave?
Yeah, as anyone would be.
And you never examined the vehicle in person, did you?
They would not let me. I did not have access to it.
But would you have liked to have seen the scene?
Of course, I could have picked up on something they would have missed.
So you think it would have allowed you to get something that you would have otherwise not seen in the photographs?
Correct.
Let me bring your attention to the blood splatter in the vehicle. Isn't it just as likely for it to have been caused by a gunshot than a sneeze?
It's just as likely.
But for it to be a sneeze on the car door, wouldn't it have to be like with a backwards tilted head? Because if you sneeze, blood would go downwards, and that would go for
That is not necessarily true. Let me ask you, have you ever sneezed on a window? You get stuff all in front of you. It doesn't go straight down to the ground.
But it's highly unlikely that it would just happen like that. You would have to have a backwards head to be tilted that way for it to have gotten on the top of the car door.
A car door goes to here. Turn sideways, perfect angle.
And isn't it true that blood was found on the bullet?
Yes, blood was found on the bullet.
How do you explain blood getting found on the bullet again?
As I said in my direct.
On a fired bullet?
As I said in my direct, the bullet could have been previously fired in that car. Nosebleed could have gotten blood. And also, as I said in my direct, that someone could have discharged it while they were sneezing.
And as you said in your witness statement, that if the blood on the seat was to be consistent with the nosebleed, it would have to be coming from a slightly tilted head?
Yeah.
So don't you think that for your theory to be correct, a lot of small, unlikely elements would have to come together, such as a tilted head and blood dripping onto a fired bullet and a backwards head during a sneeze?
Not as many unlikely things as the prosecution's theory.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any redirect by the people?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Nothing further from the people, correct?
No.
Or you may step down.
Thank you.
Right, next witness.
The defense calls CMC side, please.
All right.
Do you swear that you'll testify within the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Have a seat, ma'am. Thank you.
Could you please state and spell your last name for the record?
Sam Seaside, Seaside.
Did you attend school?
Yes, I do.
Where did you attend school last year?
Superior High School.
Do you know Nikki Shore?
Yeah, she's my best friend.
How long have you known Nikki?
Since elementary school. Forever.
What's your relationship with Nikki like?
Best friends. I mean, and like all best friends do, we fought sometimes, but at the end of the day, we still cared about each other.
I would like to direct your attention to the night of May 24th, 2013. What was happening that night?
There was a party.
Whose party was it?
Ronnie Johnson's.
How did you get there?
Nikki picked me up and we drove there together.
Then what happened?
After we got to the party, we split up.
Did Nikki have any other friends at the party?
Yeah, Joe was there and that group of friends.
Who's Joe?
Joe was Nikki's ex and part of the group that she started hanging out with.
Did you see Nikki again after you guys split up?
Yeah, I saw her a few times.
Well, could you elaborate?
There was one time when I actually overheard her talking about a mistake that I had made early that year and that she knew I did not want her to bring up.
Could you Tell us what that was.
Earlier this year, I was accused of plagiarism, and it was an honest mistake. Like, I did not know that the internet was not free domain. I put a quote in my English paper, and it happened to be my professor's, one of his closest friends. But I didn't get suspended. I didn't get expelled. School forgot about it after volunteer work.
All right. What happened after you heard her telling her friends about that?
I asked her to stop, and because she knew how much it meant to me, because if I didn't, if people found out about that, then I might not be able to go to college.
What happened after you asked her to stop?
She got mad at me, and we got in an argument.
Could
A
you
verbal argument.
Could you elaborate on what the argument entailed?
She said that I was going to mooch my way into college, and that I didn't belong there, but it was just words. Like one of the money arguments we had.
What happened after that?
After that, Joe tried to step in the argument, and which really wasn't needed. Like, it was just one of the mini fights that Nikki and I always had, and that's when it got more severe than it actually was.
Okay. Was there any other parties or times that you and Nikki were together after that?
After that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually drove Nikki home that night.
Okay. Did you actually, drive her home? Drop her off at her house?
I drove to her home, but she refused to get out of the car, so I thought it was just best to leave it at that and drop her off at the park by Joe's house.
And why did you do that?
Because I didn't want to get in a further argument, and I thought Nikki knew what was best. She was with Joe.
Did the police contact you at any time?
Yes, they contacted me on Sunday.
What did they ask you?
They asked me when was the last time I'd seen Nikki.
What did you tell them?
I told them Friday night, and I told them even though I knew I was going to get in trouble, I still told them the truth.
Did they ever talk to you after that? Or contact you after that?
Yes, they did. And they asked me if I known anyone who owned a gun.
And what did you tell them?
At first I told them no, but then I remembered that my father's gun had been stolen previously.
Was there anything unique or different about Nikki as far as health-wise?
Yes, she always had nosebleeds. She was infamous for it, all the time.
When did you last see Nikki?
Friday night at the park with Joe.
And Joe was the only other person there?
Yes.
Did you kill Nikki Shore?
No, she was my best friend. She's still out there. She's missing, and no one's looking for her. We're here.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed then.
You said that you and Nikki had been drifting apart lately, correct?
Correct.
And you had been getting into a lot of fights also, right?
Yes, but we were still best friends.
Isn't it true that you didn't like Nikki's new friends?
I don't think I ever said I didn't like them.
But you were angry at her for inviting them to your house.
I don't think I said I was angry.
You blamed her for the party getting out of hand.
I don't think I said that I blamed her.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with her witness statement?
You may.
Okay, so you had stated that because of Nikki, the party got out of hand, correct?
Yeah, she told people at the dance, but I didn't blame her. I don't think I said that, did I?
No, but you did say that it was her fault that the party got out of hand, correct?
Did I say that? I said that
Yes.
she invited people at the dance.
Yes. So, you did get in trouble for the party getting out of hand, correct?
Yes, I got grounded. But my parents knew people were coming. They actually said it was a good idea.
Isn't it true that you were caught plagiarizing?
Yes, that is true. I was accused of plagiarism.
And if your grandma found out about it, she would not pay for you to go to college, correct?
Well, she didn't find out, so I wouldn't know for sure.
Nikki was telling people at Ronnie's party that you were caught plagiarizing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you were angry at Nikki for doing this.
I was more disappointed because she knew how much that meant to me.
And in result of Nikki saying these things, you got into a fight.
Yes, we had an argument.
So your grandmother never found out about the plagiarizing.
No, she didn't.
And you were willing to not be honest to your grandmother in order to get what you wanted.
I don't say I'm not honest by not telling. I didn't lie to her.
But you wanted to go to college so badly that you would cover up the plagiarizing scandal at all costs.
Not at all costs.
Isn't it true that you left Ronnie's party with Nikki?
Yes, and Joe.
And you claim that you left Nikki in his car while he was intoxicated, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was there a reason why you needed to be home early?
Yes, I wanted to get home before my parents,
Why was that?
so they didn't know I was out.
So you were out without your parents knowing.
I was grounded from the previous weekend.
So you abandoned your friend in this situation in order to not get caught by your parents.
No.
But
I don't
you-
think that's accurate.
You left your friend so you could get home.
I actually went to go drop her off, and she decided she didn't want to get out of the car, and it was her choice, and I didn't want to fight with her.
But you left her.
Yes, with Joe.
Doesn't your father own a gun?
He did.
And you knew where he kept this gun.
Yes.
And you knew where he kept the bullets.
Yes.
And you had previous experience on how to shoot the gun.
I don't have any previous experience.
You were taught how to shoot the gun at your grandmother's house with your father.
Does that say that in my witness statement?
Yes.
But it would be fair to say that you had access to the gun.
Yes.
Isn't it true that you never actually saw Nikki's nose bleeding during or after Ronnie's party?
No, but Joe actually hit her in the face, and
But
she
it's
was holding it.
unlikely that she even had a bloody nose if you never actually saw blood dripping from her nose.
I wouldn't say it's unlikely since she had such a long
But you
history
never
of
saw blood
nosebleeds.
coming from her nose.
Didn't you say it was unlikely?
You never saw
Why would
blood
it be unlikely?
because it's
I
unlikely.
never saw blood that night.
It's unlikely to have a bloody nose if you don't have blood coming from your nose.
Wouldn't it be more unlikely if she didn't have such a strong history of nosebleeds?
You
She
never
was
saw
infamous for it.
saw blood dripping from her nose.
No, I have so many times.
But at this party, you never saw blood dripping from her nose.
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No.
All right. You may step down. Thank you. All right. That being the last witness, I'm going to move towards the people's closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Your Honor, could I please reserve any remaining time for rebuttal?
Yes.
Thank you. Nicky Shore was an individual full of potential. He was young, someone who had lots of friends and enjoyed living life. However, his life was cut short one night by his best friend, Sam Seaside. Sam was angry that Nicky was growing apart from her and that Nicky was telling people about how she had plagiarized. The tensions that developed in Sam and Nicky's friendship eventually became too much for Sam to bear, and in one moment of uncontained anger, Sam killed Nicky. The murder of Nicky Shore was a result of a tension-filled friendship and a teenager unable to control her jealousy. As the prosecution, we hold the burden of proof. we have managed to provide the evidence required to prove Sam of second-degree murder. The witness, Devin Blast, was one of Nikki and Sam's closest friends. She testified to the anger and bipolar relationship of Nikki and Sam. She told of how one moment the two would be close best friends, and the next exchanging angry words, and on occasion getting into physical altercation. She was present at both parties. At the party at Sam's house, she told of how Sam had removed the gun from her father's gun cabinet and waved it around in front of other people. Devin Blast also told of how at the night of the party at Ronnie Johnson's house, Sam and Nikki got into an argument. Casey Vince, an expert in the field of DNA crime scene blood analysis, testified that the blood in the car and on the bullet found in the car matched the blood of the victim, Nikki Shore. He also was able to make a qualified prediction that the shooter of the bullet had been sitting in the driver's seat and the person shot had been sitting in the passenger seat. Ronnie Johnson, a friend of the victim and the defendant, was able to place Sam Seaside in the driver's seat of the car and Nikki Shore in the passenger seat on the night of the party. Casey Vince was also able to match the blood found on Sam Seaside's shirt with blood from Nikki Shore. Cameron Paul is an expert in the field of ballistics. He matched the bullet in the car to the gun that was seen in the possession of Sam Seaside on the night of the party. He was also able to prove that the defendant was familiar with shooting the gun while speaking with the defendant's father. The defense likes to bring up that there are 21 other guns that shoot the same bullets. It seems a bit too much of a coincidence for a gun to be seen with the defendant and almost a week later have a bullet matching the gun be found in a car connected to the defendant. There are many holes in the case that the defense presents. For example, why are there no fingerprints in Nikki Shore's car, the car Sam was driving on the night of the party? Cameron Paul dusted for fingerprints on the door handle and the steering wheel, two places most commonly touched in the car. However, there were no fingerprints. This was a car commonly driven by the victim. It would seem that after driving a car very often, at one point, one's fingerprints would end up in the car. This does not hold true for Nikki Shore's car. A lack of fingerprints points in the direction of a cover-up. The defense also assumes that Nikki Shore is still alive. They've hinted at Nikki Shore being safe somewhere and well. However, we as the prosecution cannot help but ask, why would Nikki Shore leave? Nikki led a life of fun while in high school. He went to many parties and had lots of friends. As a high school student who was not that concerned about the future, Nikki had no means of living on his own. He had very little time until he received his high school diploma. It makes no sense for a person like Nikki Shore to up and leave for no reason. Sam Seaside claims to care for Nikki Shore like a brother. According to the defendant, she purposely remained sober at Ronnie Johnson's party in order to drive Nikki home. Nikki and Joe were both very intoxicated. Yet instead of taking Nikki home like a good friend would do, the defendant claims to have left Nikki and Joe sitting in a parking lot together. Joe was a person that Sam did not approve of. If Sam had truly cared for Nikki like she said, she would have not left him in the parking lot with no one to help him besides another intoxicated person. This appears to be a discrepancy in a cover story fabricated by the defendant. Nikki Shore is gone. He can't go to college, get a job, get married, or have kids. Neither his family nor his friends will ever get to see him again. This was all because of Sam Seaside. She took a life because she could not cope with the fact that her friend was moving on from her. As a young adult, she hadn't learned that not everything lasts forever. She couldn't accept this, and because of this, she took the life of what she used to consider her best friend. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we ask that you determine the defendant to be guilty of second-degree murder in order to ensure that the family and friends of Nikki Shore receive the justice that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Defense ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed with your closing argument.
The road less traveled is not always the right road to take. The easy thing is not always the right thing. And in this case, this is the case we have here. The prosecution took the easy way out. They rushed to a judgment that Sam Seaside is guilty of murder. I've listened to the story intently, and I hope you could do the same for me. At the end of this, you have to ask yourself, has prosecution proven Sam Seaside guilty beyond reasonable doubt? I ask you to see only the true facts given and not the speculation, because this isn't just Sam Seaside's life at stake, but any chance at finding Nikki Shore is on the line. The prosecution is so swift to dismiss Nikki as a person. In all actuality, Nikki is missing. We should be looking for Sam Seaside's best friend. We should be looking for Nikki Shore. Sam cares about Nikki like her own family. All she wants is to be with her best friend again. Many things could have happened to Nikki that night. She always did say she did want to go backpacking in Europe because she didn't know what she wanted to do when she was older. She wasn't sure if she wanted to go to college. She had nothing to stay for. We don't know if she ran off for some reasons unknown.
We don't know where she is. The prosecutor's job isn't to speculate and jump to conclusions. The prosecutor's job is not to rush to judgment as it has done in this case. And that is what happened here. The prosecution jumped to the conclusion that that Nikki Shore is dead and that Sam Seaside killed her. They didn't take into account that Sam is just another victim. Sam wasn't the only one that saw Nikki the night that she went missing. Joe Turner was present and was actually the last person who saw Nikki. Joe couldn't be reached on account of the fact that she joined the Army, and amazingly, just 3 days later, Nikki's disappearance. It was too hard to get a hold of Joe, so they didn't. No one talked to Joe. No one investigated Joe. They don't know what Joe is doing and what connections Joe may have to this case. They took the easy way and blamed the next best person. They blamed Sam. And they have done so without evidence any place close to beyond a reasonable doubt. We do not even know if Nikki Shore is dead. There is zero evidence that she is dead. The only thing we know for sure is she is missing. And then the prosecution wants you to believe that she was shot to death with a gun that belonged to Sam Seaside's father. A gun that nobody knows the location of. A gun that was one of 22 different brands capable of firing the bullet that was found in Nikki Shore's auto. A gun that was one of probably thousands of guns in one of those 22 different brands. A gun that was stolen from Seaside's home right before Nikki Shore's disappearance. A gun that others had access to and had the opportunity to take. In fact, we know that Joe Turner, the last person to have seen her before the disappearance, was the last one to have been in the room with the gun. And where the ammunition was kept, right before the end of the party at the Seaside residence. And they only blamed Sam because of the type of gun that they believe supposedly killed Nikki. The only reason that prosecution believes that Nikki is dead is because some specks of blood found in her car. We know that Nikki Shore had chronic nasal infections that left her prone to nosebleeds. You have heard from Parker D., an expert who has worked for the State and Crime Lab for many years, a man who left because of his concern about the shoddy work performed by the lab, a man who has worked for justice and getting wrongful convictions resulting from this kind of shoddy work overturned. He has explained that in his professional opinion that the bloodstains on the car could just as easily have come from a sneeze by a person with a nosebleed, such as Nikki Shore was notorious for having. And the 3 drops in the car seat were drips from, as likely as any other cause, a bloody nose. The blood on Sam Seaside's shirt was degraded. Sam and Nikki were best friends. The blood could have gotten on Sam's shirt at any time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution has tried to pile one assumption onto the other, one guess upon another, and one theory upon another, and call it evidence, and call it proof beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecution has failed miserably to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sam is guilty. In the prosecution's rush to judgment, they have not proven Nikki is dead. They've only assumed Nikki is dead. The last person to have been with Nikki the night of her disappearance, ladies and gentlemen, I am asking you to put an end to the nightmare brought upon Sam Seaside by her best friend disappearing and then being arrested and accused of second-degree murder by returning only this verdict. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, any further comment for closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
I would like to reiterate once again that Sam Seaside was sitting in the driver's seat of the car when he left the party, the place where the shooter was sitting. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please remember the lost life of Nikki Shore and determine a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the proofs in this case are completed and the closing arguments are done. What will happen now is we're going to go into recess and the judges are going to go back and we're going to tally up our sheets. We'll come back out and give you some comments in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
All right, please.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. All right, everybody did a real nice job, first off. And I know we're about ready to eat, but before we do, what we're going to do is going to wrap this up by having the judges give some comments. I'm going to start off first with our bailiff, Deputy.
Like I told the other group, your tone sets the voice. A lot of you guys have good tone. Some of you gotta work on it. I'm not gonna single anybody out, but you learn that after a while, that your tone of your voice controls your room. If I talk like this, you guys won't know, and you guys won't look at me, you'll look other places. If I talk like this, you guys are gonna look right at me. I can look at eye level, I can look at all you. One word to get out of you guys' vocabulary when you get older. Throw that right out of your vocabulary right now, especially when you get up here, throw it out. And another thing, watch what you do at the defense table. If judges is to come in and go like this, go, morning guys, what are you guys gonna do? You guys are gonna lose all respect for them. You're at the prosecutor, you're at the defense. I know it's hard to keep your hands still, I know it's hard to keep attention, but watch that, because other people are watching you, all right? Good luck the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Senior Assistant Mona Armstrong.
Okay, well, and I know because we want to get to lunch, I'm going to go fast because I just want to point out a couple things. I thought this group both sides did an excellent job wordsmithing or using particular words to convey exactly, I wrote down a few phrases. Murderous rage coming out of the opening over here, a living nightmare over there, shoddy work in the closing. So I think you did very well at using those words to convey exactly what you were trying to convey and to develop the theme of your cases. Another positive that I thought that this group, both of these groups did in this session that I saw a little bit more than our last session was developing the expertise of the experts and exactly how that relates to their opinion. You talked about blood stain pattern analysis when you talked with that expert. That's a highly specialized area of science. And on that same vein, it's blood spatter, it's not blood splatter. So make sure, because you're trying to convey exactly how highly scientific this area of law is. So you want to make sure that you're using the right language and the right phrases. Just a couple things, be careful not to step on your witnesses' answers, especially with, the defense was very good at telling witnesses, yes or no. And that can be okay. Sometimes a judge is going to say, well, no, if there's more to say, let the witness answer the question. But you used it to control the witnesses, which is fine. But then you have to make sure you don't step on the witnesses because lots of times you were getting in a role of getting the concessions you wanted, and then you just started cutting them off. And in a real courtroom, the judge is going to, if Judge Holowitz had his court reporter here, he would have been stopping you because you're stepping over each other and the court reporter can't type down those types of things. So just make sure you don't want it to seem like you're being disrespectful to the witness either. And the last thing that I would just mention, I know there's some other comments, clicky pen. Claire did a great job bringing out so much, but I was getting distracted by your clicky pen. And I'm going to tell you right now, I go to court with a pen with a cap for that same reason. Because if I had a clicky pen, I'd be clicking it the whole time. It's like change in your pocket if you're a man who's got keys in their pocket or something like that. Those nervous habits you have that no one would know you were nervous except for you're doing that. So just keep an eye for those things. Good luck on your last round.
Sheriff Donlin.
Great job. Everyone improves as the morning goes on, so I just was very, very impressed with this group. In my job, I'm in the witness stand, so I'm only going to address the witnesses. I don't get to ask questions. I'm not a prosecutor nor a defense attorney. But a few things for the witnesses. Dylan, great eye contact. You looked at us. When you're in this chair, you answer the questions, and then you turn and look at us. You're not engaging with them, you're engaging with us. We're the ones that are going to evaluate your testimony. Okay, so always remember that. Don't go back and forth with who's ever asking your questions. Listen, and then look at us. Did a great job on that. All of you, when you understand, don't say too much, because if you add a little extra 2 cents in, you're going to get blown up. And Dylan, when you said the extra amount of blood and large amount of blood, the fear kind of slapped you up a little bit. And I'll tell you, that's happened to me. and I got dismantled as a young deputy by a salty old defense attorney. And in the hallway, when I was still beat-faced red, he told me, he says, you know how you catch a big fish, young man? And I said, how? And he says, you get him to open his mouth. And I never forgot that. So be careful what you say. Luke, great job. Really loud. It was perfect. We could hear you. Very nice. Zach, nice work with your hands. You went to your nose, to your hips, and said, here's how far this would be. Jury are lay people. They're looking at that. That really helped. Don't get defensive. You're a professional witness. You're an expert witness. Defense attorneys are always going to want to get into your skin and make you lose composure. Pros don't lose their composure. Don't spar back and forth. Answer the questions. You're a pro. That's what you got to tell yourself. Sarah, great job. Smiled and smiled and smiled. Did a great job. Really good. You knew your report inside and out. Tried to impeach you twice. Couldn't impeach you. If there's anything I preach to my cops, you know your report and you know that inside and out. Because a cop that doesn't know his report's going to get killed in the stand. So nice job. The only thing is, you don't get to ask questions. Usually back to the sooner or later you're going to get killed doing it. So, but everybody did a great job. I really, really enjoyed this. Good luck on your next round.
Thank you, Sheriff Donlin. Mr. Davidson.
I like the way each side sort of had a theme. The prosecution had sort of a heat of the moment approach where they wanted to show that maybe it wasn't an intentional premeditated murder, but that everything came together. And it was very, very hard prosecution case because of the circumstantial nature of all the evidence. No body, no gun. So you really had to try and pull all these things together to show that the murder was committed. Likewise, the defendant had this rush to judgment theme and did a nice job of bringing that up and making that the theme that there are just too many loose ends here and should not have gone so quickly, maybe done some more investigation. If you're doing a jury trial, I always thought kind of the key to winning the case was to get the jury to like you more than they like the other attorney. You have to be careful when you're cross-examining, especially the expert witness, not to get too hostile. Because if you do that, that kind of turns the jury off. Maybe you're going to win that point and prove that point, but you know, maybe the gentler approach sometimes would come across better. I was a little disappointed in the prosecution's closing argument where you suddenly came up with this, I forgot the victim's name, but was moving on to another part of her life and kind of missed the real kind of real life motives of losing the scholarship by being accused of having a gun or being accused of plagiarism. When I was reading the facts, that's kind of what I was thinking was really going to be the motive. Because, again, with a circumstantial case, you've got to have a motive. Okay, so I thought that could have been stressed a little more. But I thought everybody did a good job. One other point, there was an expert witness that the one party forgot to have approved to be an expert witness. I think it was the defendants. But then again, the prosecution have objected to that. You know, if that didn't get done, you know, and that's sort of in the category of being in the competition of you know, keeping track of those little things. But overall, I think both of you did very well, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you. Good job to both teams. I said this after the first round of the teams who were here. I think both teams did a good job in your opening. It's already been said. You had themes that were developed. That's well and good. But then when you come to your closings, I noticed both sides had their closings prepared, either on note cards or on paper, which is good. You have to be prepared as to what you're going to say. But I think what's really important in a closing is what evidence came out during the trial and hit on it. What was good to you? What did you jump on? And really, you can't do that until you hear what happens in each case. If you go up and read a script you prepared last night, well, maybe the witnesses didn't say what you thought they were going to say. And here, I said after the first round, each case is different, and the case we saw in round one was not like the one we saw today. The witnesses here were very different. They stood their ground more so than those last time. So I think you have to adapt your closings a little bit. You know, you can't totally rework it, but keep some spots in there to hit on what your witnesses said, what you got out on cross-examination, and those kind of things. And you can still come back to your theme. You don't have to ditch your theme. But, and when you're doing your closings and your openings, acknowledge us, you know. It's hard for us to pay attention at times because you're focused so much on your script. I know it's impossible to memorize it, but if you can, try to turn towards us. Look at us, and you both did look at us a little bit, but try to work on that a little more. In addition, for some of the expert witnesses, you have to remember, why is this expert here, and why was the person qualified as an expert? Some of you asked your experts to make a legal conclusion. Do you think this person committed murder in your expert opinion? There's no expert witness here that can make that legal conclusion. That's for us, the jury, to decide that. Nobody else can decide that. So you really can't ask that question. In a real trial, you would be objected to, you know, immediately. So keep that in mind. And another thing to remember is, if you have a witness, if you're up there and you're doing your cross-examination, and that witness, like we had here with the defendant was not going to give an inch. The defendant was a little bit combative. You don't have to just stand there and take it. You can object to the judge and say, Judge, I would like this to be, you know, deemed a hostile witness, or Judge, this witness is being argumentative with me. You don't just have to stand there and kind of take the beating from your witness because your witness is kind of ganging up on you. But to the credit of the defendant, she got away with it. So you have to give her credit. She got away with it, and a couple of times she challenged, did I say that? And really, the prosecutor couldn't come back and say, yeah, you did, here it is. It either took too long, you couldn't find it, you wanted to move on, and I understand that. But I thought the witnesses here were very strong on both sides, and everybody had their high points and things to work on. But just want to say good luck and final round to both teams, and good job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Well, going last, I get try not to repeat. I'll just tell Claire that one of my big things is this too. I drive my court reporter crazy because one practical thing I'll tell you is this: records everything. And when I go like this, my court reporter Melanie yells at me all the time because I do that all the time. So you work to try to get around those types of things, but overall you guys did great. Sarah was a very difficult witness for the prosecution. When you have that, the best thing you can do is just try to work with what she's given you. And what she's given you, maybe she's arguing with you. Maybe she's going to be coming off that way. And so thinking on your feet is what trial work really is. And you guys did a really good job. But I think like what Mr. Kelly said, but not to hit it too hard again, is that listen to what's said in the actual trial and what comes out of these witnesses. Because I know the best laid plans that you guys have worked on over the last weeks and months is to have a script for your closing, but incorporate what your witnesses give you, because sometimes what they give you is gold. So think about what's been said, listen to what's going on, and work it into your closings as best you can, because we all heard what was said here in the courtroom. And if you work that in, it makes a lot of sense. It can be real powerful. You guys did a great job, though. I know you guys are going to do real good in the next rounds. All of the expert witnesses here were excellent. So with that, let's have lunch. Congratulations.